All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
MotherGoose, standing by.
Lowtech Tuck, standing by.
Lock S foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Animal Squadron podcast. I'm your host, HouseDog, and with me, as always, my trusting friend, my loyal compadre, the one, the only MotherGoose.
Hello, everybody.
Another weekend, another no-tuck weekend. I don't know.
I know, my heart breaks.
Does it? Because you were just telling me before we started recording how happy you were that it was back to just being me and you for a while.
You have no proof. You have no proof.
Tell that to the FBI agent I planted inside your home. That crab up on the cat tree, he's an FBI agent.
I should have known.
You
Crabs
should know.
aren't supposed to be so cute.
You should know that I have cameras and microphones all around your house.
Yep, that's why I'm always saying how much I love you when other people are around.
Just randomly, in conversation that has nothing to do with it, I love Max so much.
Man, I just miss Max so much right now.
I wish he was here.
Sure wish he didn't move away.
Yeah, you know, everybody does. But yeah, just another week of me and you talking about Andor. It's kind of like our thing now.
Andor. Yeah, we're talking about Season 1, Episode 5, The Axe Forgets.
An interesting title. And honestly, I was kind of worried about today because I didn't remember this episode at all. And middle arc episodes always worry me.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I like I stated previously, I completely forgot about this episode. Didn't remember anything besides a couple bits and pieces. But I enjoyed this episode so much.
I did as well. Sorry, I was checking to see how many episodes were in this arc. Because I always thought this was a 4-episode arc, but it looks like it's only 3.
Yeah, only a lot happens in the ending.
Yeah. And I'm really coming around to this arc as well. Last episode, I don't know if I actually said it, but I definitely felt like Andor on Aldhani was the weakest part of the episode. And I don't know if I feel that way about this episode, at least. I feel like things are really starting to pick up in Aldhani.
I feel like things are getting really fleshed out. Like all the new characters we've met, Andor as a person, you're starting to really understand him and who he is in this part of his life. Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we're doing this arc and the next arc for the Andor series. Because yes, it would have been really cool to just have gotten 24 episodes of Andor being a cool spy, doing spy stuff for the rebellion. But like having this arc and the next arc really highlight why he eventually joins the rebellion is really interesting.
And I know we usually hop around a lot, or that's kind of what we've moved towards in review, but I would really like to take this one chronological.
Yeah, I think I'm down. I think all of us maybe don't take notes anymore like we used to. So
I don't.
It was really easy to stay chronological when we were taking notes because we took them as we saw the episodes and we were all doing it and we kind of just walked through our notes, and now it's kind of just like, here's what's on my mind right now.
Here's what I'm thinking. This is the rabbit that I'm chasing. No, for some reason, I just feel like this, like I feel like the previous episodes you can kind of just jump around, but I feel like this one really matters to go in chronological order.
Yeah, listen, I'm totally down. You're gonna have to kind of lead because it's all a little jumbled in my brain.
It's fine. So we open with Cyril,
Right. Mm-hmm.
in his mother's apartment. And I loved this scene so much.
Yeah.
We get more insight to Cyril and his mother's relationship, and it does have that air of she's disappointed in him, but it all boils down to the last shot of, and we can talk about their conversation more in depth if you'd like to, but at the end of their conversation, she pushes he's eating just a meal of cereal and blue milk. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like it's breakfast time. It seems like it's late in the day. And if it is breakfast time, it's very early morning, because it's still kind of, it's that point in the day with the lighting of the shot of the opening episode where it's either dawn or dusk. It could be either one. But he's eating like Trix cereal is what it looks like. And probably
With
what it
his
most
blue
likely
milk.
is.
Yeah.
And his blue milk. And at the end of the scene, Cyril's mother, after she kind of not really berates him, but beats him down some more in a really backhanded way, she pushes this plate of like fruit towards him.
Yeah.
And to me, that meant a lot, because while Cyril's mother may not say like, I love you or I'm proud of you, I think the pushing of the fruit towards him was like, you need to take care of yourself. I do love you. I'm your mother, but like, you kind of suck.
That's really interesting. I actually took it a different way. I saw it more as her exerting her control, or trying to exert her control. Like, it's something you would do with a young child that's only eating a sweet treat. You would be, as the adult, it's like, okay, you need to eat your vegetables too. That's okay. It's a totally different dynamic when it's two adults, and one of them is trying to force the other to eat something. And maybe I'm putting too much into it, but it just felt like her saying, I'm in control, do what I say, eat your vegetables. Like, she doesn't trust him as his own adult. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying, but I'd also like to point out, you and I are also the youngest boys in our family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So each of our mothers loves us very much, and we will always be their precious baby boy. And that's kind of how I read that scene, is like, yeah, Cyril's a grown man and he can have cereal for dinner, but she wants him to have his fruit too. Because she mentions these lines of like him slouching, and she's like, is this how you present yourself to the world? And, moms just want to fatten you up. They just want you to be healthy,
Real.
So they're going to push that plate of fruit towards you to, get a little extra on you because they care about you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I really like that take. It's something I hadn't really considered before. Something else, though, about this conversation. Yes, she is definitely putting him down. I really forgot about all of Cyril's like snide little comments back. Like, he's not just sitting there taking it like,
oh no, he's just as bad as she is.
Yeah, they're talking about the phone call, and she's like, oh, you heard that? And he's like, how could I not?
Yeah, which that brings up another good point, which I forgot about until you said that, is she says something along the lines of like, you never brought me out to where you work to like let me see you in action. He was like, I told you you could come anytime you wanted. And she said, an open invitation is almost as good as no invitation, or something to that effect. And I had never kind of thought about that, but she's kind of right. Like, an open invitation is like, it's a nice gesture, but it's different than saying, hey, I would really like you to come visit. Can we figure out how to, get you to the starport and get you on a freighter and, get you here maybe during this block of time, rather than just saying, well, you can come anytime you want. There is a difference between saying those two things.
Yeah. I think it also depends on the person, right? Like, I think a really extroverted person would probably hear, oh, you can come anytime you want, and then show up anytime they want. But I think an introverted person, you need that direct, hey, I want to see you, please come visit.
I think that's what his mom requires, is him saying,
I agree.
I need you to come here. I think she needs to be needed.
Yeah.
And that's probably some of their dilemma in their relationship is she would never tell Cyril that I want you to need me.
Right.
And Cyril constantly feels like I have to break away.
Yeah. Which, a lot of people, when they're worried about something bad happening, like pushing your son away or losing your partner or maybe not getting a promotion at work, because they're so stressed and anxious about that outcome, ends up causing that outcome. And I think we do kind of see that with his mom here. She really wants to be needed, and that is pushing him away.
It's a forced prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
You're self-fulfilling.
The self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, it's like what happened with Anakin without the magic.
It all comes back.
It all comes back.
You can't really tell, and you don't get it until the last scene, which we can cover, but Cyril is holding something in his hands in that bedroom, and we can cover it whenever we get to the end of the episode, but you don't realize what it is until the end.
God, I don't think I even realize what it is now.
It's fine. I'll take you there. Next, we go to Andor, back on Aldhani, and having his conversation with Skeen. I don't think I ever noticed how skinny Skeen is, or any of the other cast members that have been on Aldhani besides. You're gonna have to help me out.
Gorn.
Lieutenant Gorn.
Yeah.
Thank you. I forget it every time. He's the only one that doesn't look like he's been living in the wild.
Right, which makes sense, being a Imperial.
Yeah, but you can really tell with Skeen in this first shot where Andor, sorry, I don't know why I forgot his name. The show's literally named after him.
Don't even worry about it.
He wakes up and he sees that his stuff is gone. Or like his blaster and other effects are gone. And Skeen's over kind of washing himself off, getting ready for the day. And it's all of Andor's stuff. But it's just this shot of Skeen from behind. And he's like extremely skinny. Like it's literally just the muscle that's left on his body. There's no fat.
Right.
And I think that plays into a scene that comes up later where I guess it's lunchtime or whatever. They're having some sort of meal and the young guy just gives him a cup of goat milk.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, you can live on this stuff.
It's not great, but...
yeah, it can sustain you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know there's the whole plot line with Mon Mothma. I literally was panicking, saying, don't say Mothra in my brain. And the 40,000 misplaced credits, which is a pretty good amount of credits. And probably some of that goes to feeding these rebel spies. But I mean, if you think about it, 40,000 is not a lot if you're spreading it between a bunch of different rebel cells.
I don't think it goes to food at all. I think it just kind of goes to cost, just the cost of the business. Like if you're running a restaurant, I think as far as their billing goes, I think they're just covering the cost of running a rebellion.
Yeah.
There's no profit. There's no, they may not even be breaking even at this point.
Right. They are doing what they need to survive.
If you don't mind me going back to Skeen in Andor, they're having this little talk. Skeen has some tattoos on his body, and Andor recognizes them, and Skeen's like, you know what these are, don't you? I saw you. Like, check them out. And he's like, yeah, those are from, like, detention centers.
Yeah.
And Andor grew up in detention centers, apparently. or was in one
Right.
at one point at a young age. And they're talking kind of about the Empire and what it's done to the galaxy. And I didn't know the episode title comes from skiing, which is the axe forgets, but the tree remembers, which is a symbolism for, they themselves.
Right.
Against the Empire. The Empire forgets what they've done to people.
Right. They've done so many atrocities. Who can keep up?
Yeah, the people remember, which I think it's Skeen's line later in this episode. He says something about, it's easier to cover things up when you commit 40 atrocities rather than just one.
Right.
If there's a whole lot of bad, it's super easy to hide what's actually going on rather than one event. Right.
Which I think is a big theme with this series. Which, something that kind of frustrated me when I was first watching through Andor was we get the line, essentially, Empire bad, repeated in different ways over and over and over again. And I was like, okay, we get it. We know the Empire's bad, but in the last couple of weeks, no spoilers for season 2, but I've seen so many posts of people going, I didn't realize the Empire was bad until I watched Andor.
I think that's fair, though, to the casual watcher. I mean, I think we have to take into account the climate of fans today.
Yeah.
Everybody's not us. Everybody doesn't watch everything that comes out.
Right.
The people that are saying that could have watched Tales of the Empire or Tales of the Jedi and Andor Season 2. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was my point, was that not everybody has all of the context, and sometimes it is important to really show why they are so evil.
But I mean, isn't that the whole point of Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Is it like not everybody in the galaxy knew that the Empire was evil?
Yeah, that's fair.
And we've said it a million times. It's based on history.
Mm-hmm.
I was really into, specifically, Hitler's early uprising in Germany at one point, and I was watching documentaries on it and kind of how they pushed him into power and everything. Yeah. And obviously he was a amazing public speaker. He was a super good orator, and the way they kind of did it was he would start in these really small pubs kind of.
Yeah.
And then just keep going. And it didn't start with the blaming of the Jewish people or anything. He was just talking about how Germany was going down and how whatever the German currency is, before he came into power, their version of $1 wasn't even equal to $1. Let's say a loaf of bread was $1, right? You couldn't even buy a loaf of bread for $1. The cost had risen so much.
Mm-hmm.
And he just convinced people. He was like, look how bad this is. I can make it better. Which is all Palpatine did.
Right.
Which is entirely what Palpatine's based off. He's a great public speaker, but in the background, he's doing these terrible things and blaming others.
Evil person. Right.
It reminded me of a line from the sequel trilogy, actually.
Okay.
It's the scene where they're on the ship. It's the part where they're trying to catch back up with the Rebel fleet once they've gotten Benicio del Toro.
Oh,
and he and Finn are talking. And Benicio, isn't he DJ? Isn't that his name? Benicio del Toro's character?
DJ.
DJ's pulling up the ship that they stole. He's some type of industrial
arms dealer.
Yeah. And he's selling to both sides. And DJ's like, Empire, Republic, whatever you want to call it. It's the same fight on both sides. And, we mentioned how you commit 40 atrocities. It's a lot easier to hide one big thing that's actually going on behind the scenes. The rebels operate the same way. And they talk about it later in the scene back in the ISB. It links up.
No, yes, it does link up to the ISB. However, we've talked about this line a couple times, and it is a really good line. War is war, war is bad, right? But at the same time, the motivations between the two different factions are not the same.
No, I agree with you on that.
The First Order, they are fascist governments trying to oppress the galaxy. The rebels, the resistance, yes, sure, they were fighting a war. War is bad, but they were fighting for freedom, and they were fighting for the galaxy, the end of tyranny. Like, yes, in a perfect world, there would be no war. But when evil governments like this pop up, it is the responsibility of the people to fight back.
But isn't it's all just a point of view? To quote Obi-Wan.
Yeah, but...
Which is the worst side to take, by the way.
Listen. Sure, when you're lying to your godson about his dad killing himself or whatever, that's one thing. But when you're fighting a fascist government, I don't think that necessarily applies.
No, I just think it all plays into that balance idea. You know, one of the ideals that Star Wars is built upon, you know, is the idea of balance, in how, you know, everybody thinks, oh yeah, the good guy should always win. Good should always triumph over evil, right? That's one of the big plot points. But there can be no good without evil. There can be no dark without light. There has to be that yin yang, that balance.
Yeah. Right. Which, to just support your point, there's that really great conversation between Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera in Rebels, where he essentially is calling her a coward and she's calling him a terrorist. And they're both fighting the same fight, but it's a difference of ideals.
And I can't think of the word, the way that they carry out those plans.
Right. She talks about
diplomacy and such.
Right. And how he breaks every rule of engagement, how they kill civilians, and he says, you're too weak-willed, essentially, and if you play by their rules, you'll never win. What
did you think about it's the next scene with Mon Mothma, the husband, and the daughter, Lita? Which I really like that her daughter's name is Lita, and it's only one letter away from Leia.
Yeah. I really think that the intention is to maybe... There's supposed to be some parallels between Mon and Lita and Bail and Leia. You know, because at this point, I don't know how old Lita is, but Leia's like 14-ish, and we know from Rebels that she's already part of the Junior Senate. I believe that's what it's called. And she's already helping the Rebels in some fashion. Probably not as much as she is later on by the original trilogy, but she is involved. While Lita's just like... She's just getting to live a normal life.
A normal teenager.
Yeah. Which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. Like, I would not blame Mon Mothma for just wanting her daughter to live a normal life and not have to be a part of this. But I still think it's an interesting parallel.
I really enjoyed this scene.
Yeah.
It was one that I wish lasted longer, but I think it was perfect for what it was.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really shows off just like a normal dysfunctional family. And when I say normal, I mean it feels very realistic.
Yeah, like an actual family.
Yeah.
I thought it was refreshing, but at the same time heartbreaking that Mon Mothma is going through all of this turmoil with trying to build up the rebellion and everything. And her daughter is staring her down.
Right?
Like her lines, every single one of her daughter's lines are like daggers in this scene. She's like,
yeah,
why are you being so confrontational? Like, why are you being like this? And Lita's like, I didn't choose to have this conversation. You did.
Yeah. And then she makes a comment about how everything is about her mom.
Which is not true.
Right.
You can really tell how much the father plays a role in this.
Oh, yeah, he's the fun dad.
Yeah, fun dad versus
Yeah.
sucky mom.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those Star Wars scenes that makes you want to call your parents and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which is always refreshing. So, Mom, I know you're listening. I'm sorry.
This scene makes me think of Luthen's speech that he gives later on in the season where he says, I sacrifice my life for a sunrise I won't see. And...
Which is, of course, is foreshadowing.
Right.
Continue,
And
sir,
of course, Mon Mothma cares about the entire galaxy, but she is sacrificing her life so that her daughter can see that sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think we were talking about Bail and Leia, and like, Bail bringing Leia into the rebellion does not guarantee that Leia gets to see that sunrise. We know that she does in the end, but Bail doesn't. But Mon keeping her daughter separate from this and still fighting as hard as she can for the rebellion is a big part for her daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a message for kids as you get older and, you know, finally understanding what your parents have done your whole life is trying to make a better sunrise for you that you don't appreciate until you're older and less of a jerk. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Everything they really did was for me.
Real.
I made my parents' life horrible for, 18 years.
For why? For why?
And all they were doing was trying to be nice to me.
For sure.
Dang you, Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars.
Back on Aldani.
Back to Aldani.
This is like the goat milk scene, and it's mostly Andor and the kid talking.
Right. No, I think my comment earlier, I do really appreciate the work that Andor does to establish that the Empire is evil. You know, if this is your first Star Wars project, it's really good to have this established. Like when people say, oh, I didn't realize the Empire was evil until Andor, I'm not talking about people who haven't watched anything besides Andor or maybe just the Clone Wars or whatever. I'm talking about, people that are long form fans, people with the Empire stickers on the back of their car, or the Stormtrooper tattoos, which it's a fictional universe. I'm not saying you shouldn't have these things, but there's the whole the Empire was right or the Empire's not wrong subreddit that, yes, is mostly satire, but if you spend enough time in there, you start to realize, oh, people actually do think this way. They think that the rebels are terrorists, and it just it blows my mind. Like, how could you watch episode 4 and see them kill millions of people and not see that they're the bad guys? How can you watch episode 4 and see Vader killing his own men and not see they're the bad guys? How can you watch Rogue One and see the Empire destroy Jeddah and Scarif and not realize they're the bad guys? How can you watch Rebels and watch Thrawn do an orbital bombardment on civilians and not realize they're the bad guys?
It's the whole cat in the box thing. It's like, is it Schrodinger's cat?
Schrodinger's cat? Yeah.
Where, if you open the box, the cat dies, but is there a cat in the box or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, the Empire, yeah, they did all of that, but the Rebels also blew up the Death Star, which was the largest base in orbit that the Empire had that housed millions of people.
That is true. And I can understand from an in-universe propaganda perspective that citizens of the galaxy may not realize that it's bad, but as viewers with outside knowledge, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything is hindsight.
For sure.
And we know that the Empire's propaganda was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. This scene, I remember being really frustrated because at this point we'd already had several iterations of Empire bad, And I just was already starting to feel like it was getting a little repetitive. We already know this. And then, like you said, it's not everyone gets it. Not everyone is super fans like we are. And, you know, some people may start with Andor. Some people may just watch Andor.
Mm-hmm.
A story should tell its story. It shouldn't just assume that everyone who's watching it has seen the other 350 hours worth of Star Wars content.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty much what I was going to say is like, if you're going to put yourself in universe, I mean, you wouldn't really understand everything going on.
Right.
Because Palps was really good at hiding everything.
Yeah. And so I really was enjoying it a lot more this time around.
Isn't it kind of side squirrel thought? But isn't it crazy to think that the construction of the Death Star started in episode 2?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are in Andor talking about things. I mean, not a great deal of time has passed in universe, but a little bit has. And people are still just like, the Empire is just really oppressive. Things kind of suck. Meanwhile, there's a super weapon being built out in space that nobody knows about.
To oppress them more. Yeah, and I think you saying them talking about the oppression, that's the point that I was trying to make that I feel like I was struggling to get to a little bit is, you know, a lot of these other projects show the Empire being bad, and so far a lot of Andor has just been saying the Empire's bad. You know, it's showing versus telling.
You want more like seeing the people being oppressed.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, Empire sucks. They're oppressing us. Like, we already know.
Exactly. Yes. It's just so much more powerful when you can actually see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, it's a little later, we get to start seeing people's backstories and why they're in the rebellion, and I think it's written really well and helps us really connect with these characters.
Mm-hmm. I like how they have no idea how to get the ship off the ground.
I know.
And we are a day away from doing this heist.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, how would you fly the craft if it was loaded down with gold? And he's just like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how would you do it? How would you calculate the weight to make sure that you could fly the craft?
Yeah. Him yelling, like, what would you have done if I didn't show up? Was just so well written. It was so well performed. And Vel's just kind of like, we would have figured it out, is really telling to just how much this operation was struggling. Like, I think last episode, everyone's like, oh, why is Andor here? And its audience members were like, yeah, why is he here?
Why is he here?
They've got this figured out. Yeah.
No, I agree with you 100% because that is entirely how this story was reading up until that point.
Right. And then you realize this is why Luthen brought him here.
I think it also paints the rebellion really well, though.
Mm-hmm.
And how this is what the beginning of the rebellion looks like.
Yeah. Which, on that, sorry, little tangent. Again, I won't go off too long, but
Please
at the
do.
same point, we have the Rebels crew kind of forming, and they've been kind of fighting the Empire for a long time, but now they're really starting to fight the Empire, and it's a totally different story. Like, TIE fighters are scary in Andor. Stormtroopers are menacing in Andor, and in Rebels, they're just not. But I think that comes down to who the characters are. Like Andor, Vel, Cinta, these are normal people. And of course, the Empire is going to be so much more of a threat for them. Compared to the Rebels crew, we have a Mandalorian, 2 Jedi, a Lasat, who is much stronger and more agile than a normal human, and Hera, who is top 3 pilots in the galaxy at this point. Oh, and Chopper, the character who has the highest death count in the entire franchise aside from Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
which I love Rebels, but I also think it's really interesting seeing Andor and the Empire from the perspective of just normal people.
It makes the stakes higher for sure whenever you don't have Jedi running around.
Yeah, for sure.
We go back to where's he from? Is it Ferrix?
Oh, yeah. Now the Empire is on Ferrix.
Yeah. And it's not long. Black ISB guy is walking around with a white guy talking about setting up a headquarters and such, but nothing really struck me here.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything did for you.
It's the line, can my title be prefect? I know it doesn't come with a pay grade, and then he gets cut off saying, I don't care what you do, just make sure we're operational. Yeah.
Which is important.
Yeah, I think it was a really good line. It shows, I think it just brings more humanity to the Empire because these are real people that want different things. Like, prefect, who cares, right? It doesn't come with a pay grade, literally no different from his other job, but he cares.
Well, no.
And I think that really shows the humanity of it.
The difference is it looks really good on your quarterly reports. That's what it is. That's why he asked for it. Is because it looks like a promotion, but it's just words. It gets him to that next step where he's no longer the lieutenant of dry cleaning. He was a prefect on Ferrix.
He's a prefect?
During a rebellion uprising after an attack that cost the lives of, 20 security personnel.
Yeah.
And he was heavily involved in a peaceful transition and takeover of Ferrix.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to, my friend.
No, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking about it from like autistic white boy perspective. He just wants fancy title, but like, yeah, that makes perfect sense when you consider that he is actually a part of a military and, wants to have a future career.
All it is just cushion and fluff, man.
I took it as some just really nerdy guy saying, I kind of want to be called a Shintorian because I think that's cool.
Either or. It works either way. Whatever makes you happy.
I think you're totally right, though. I just never even crossed my mind.
And that's why we don't do the show alone.
Exactly. So what's next? Back to Aldhani, or is this Luthen scene?
We are back on Aldhani. They're marching, kind of preparing for things. And the most important part of this is Andor pointing out the subtleties of what's his face is left-handed, so he should be on the left-hand side because your gun should always be ready to come up. And if he's left-handed and he's on the right-hand side, he's flagging the guy next to him. So they need to switch places. And then Vel is like, okay, well, what's Skeen's strong hand? And he's like, what's my strong hand? And she's not even in the march. And he's like, your right hand is your weapon hand. And she's like, what about so-and-so? And he's like, it's that hand. Proving that he does know what's going on, and he pays way more attention than what it seems like. And I thought that was a really good small triumph for Andor with the group in that point, because he's only been with them for a day.
Yeah.
And they're about to pull off this big heist, and his credit isn't too high at this point with the group.
Right. Doesn't this come to bite them in the butt later, next episode? Or am I just making that up? Because they switched, it threw them off some way.
I think you might be right.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't really matter till next episode, but the whole time I was watching it, I was like, okay, I really like this scene, but I feel like something bad happens because of it.
I think you might be right.
Where to next, my friend?
There's a small scene with Gorn and a corporal looking over the land, and they have a small talk about how the number of people that gather for the event are less and less each year, which is important for later whenever we find out a little bit more of Lieutenant Gorn's backstory.
Yeah. Right. And you can really feel the pain in his voice when he says he doesn't have to imagine it. When the guy asks, can you imagine what it would be like when there were thousands of them here?
Mm-hmm.
Also, this guy was smoking a cigarette. First canon cigarette in Star Wars.
It was a death stick.
Yes. Good old death stick on the job.
Why not?
Why not? His corporal, his lieutenant, his boss isn't going to show up while he's up there.
Nah. Why would he?
Why not enjoy yourself?
I want to know why in this next scene. I mean, we know why because of the story has to happen and play out this way. Why Andor switches the Kyber from his boot to his wearing it as a necklace, because Skeen doesn't trust him at all throughout.
Right.
Since the time he showed up, and he picks up his stuff, and Andor's like freaks out. He's like, "Don't touch my satchel. I'll stab you in the throat if you touch my satchel."
I thought the Kyber crystal was in the satchel, but you might be right. It probably was in his boot.
Mm-hmm. He has it with the necklace in his boot, and then he switches it to his neck.
Right.
I'm not this smart, Elijah. I just have the episode side by side with the call.
Hell yeah. We literally just watched the episode. I trust you to know what you're talking about.
Hey, I data dump as soon as I watch it. I remember like things that I get really amped up about, and then I'm like, oh, but there's so many little things that I missed that's important.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtlety to this series.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was the satchel, so I was like, okay, that's why he's freaking out. That's why he moved it. But if it was his boot, why did he move it? Especially like later when it gets found, like it obviously is so much more obvious around his neck.
Yeah, I think this is just one of those story points that had to happen.
It had to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Because logically you'd be like, it's hidden in your boot. Nobody will find it there.
Who's sticking your hands down there?
Uh-huh. Next is ISB with Blonde Lady.
Oh, where they're going over the files and they're talking about
all of the rebel
line,
strikes.
It's too random
to be random.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think about this?
That was great. They brought up some really interesting locations, like
Jakku, Scarif, Kessel, Fondor.
Yeah, quite a bit of locations, which I thought was really interesting.
Why is Fondor
they bring
important,
up ferrets.
Elijah? Why do we know Fondor?
Fondor is really important. I'll look it up. Oh, it's his ship. Luthen's ship is from Fondor.
Fondor.
That's what it is.
I knew
Fondor
I
Yards
kept you around
Commercial
for
Ventures.
some reason.
A V21.1 Sevlex.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this scene was really interesting. I liked how she and this other guy
Her like aide.
are so they're so motivated to put everything together. They talk about spreading everything out, not hitting the same place twice. Dedra has a very specific line where she says, if I was doing it, if I was a rebel, this is how I would do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice seeing somebody as committed to the Empire as Dedra.
I don't know if it's 100% commitment to the Empire as much as...
Commitment to promotion?
No, not even promotion. I think it's more... She's genuinely curious. I think she believes in the Empire, but I think she also wants to get to the bottom of things.
Yeah, it's a puzzle for her to solve.
It's the way Cyril should be as far as like going about solving things.
Being more careful instead of just going out and doing it.
Mm-hmm. Actually
Yeah.
sitting down and reviewing the facts.
Right.
Also her
I see what
casually
you're
popping
saying.
drugs, but they're just caffeine pills.
Yeah, that's all. Nothing else.
Yeah.
She's fighting off a migraine.
Yeah. She's just working late, man.
Yeah. Regardless of if it's to the Empire or to solving the puzzle, promotion, whatever, it's still nice seeing somebody else have that same commitment as Daedra. It shows that a lot of people within the Empire have fallen for this propaganda. Sorry.
Papa Monopoly.
You know, they care about their work. Whatever the reason is, they care.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter which side you're on if you really believe in something, you know. Regardless of good or evil here. It's refreshing to see someone believe in something and go after it.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes for interesting characters.
It makes them not so one-dimensional. Like, sure, it's great having a bad guy that's 100% evil, you know?
Right.
That is literally just out killing and mowing people down with a lightsaber. Super cool. Mm-hmm. But could you imagine if that's all Vader was? Like, all Vader did was kill people. If there was no emotional story behind it or why he did the things, he'd be so boring as a character.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think, you know, we've talked to people who grew up with the original trilogy and didn't have all the extra content that we have. And they've told us about Vader being scary, and I'm sure that added to it. But I just couldn't imagine watching Vader's story now, not knowing the context of the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, Kenobi,
Especially
anything else.
Kenobi.
Especially Kenobi.
I've been itching to watch Kenobi again. Don't give me a reason.
Listen, we did say that we would try and finish Mandalorian this year. But maybe we do Kenobi first. Who knows?
I'd love it.
All right. What's next, King?
We have a small toast to the rebellion.
Yeah. Which I'm glad you brought this up because Vel's kind of jealous of Andor. And it's really subtle the way they handle it. Like, you know, her watching Andor and Cinta together. After Cinta leaves, she walks up and says, "You can dress yourself, Andor."
Well, yeah, because Skeen tells Andor earlier, he's like, Cinta's one of the most tough and dedicated people to this cause, but she's already sharing the blanket.
Right. And then we have this scene specifically where Andor gets past the drink, be it alcohol, goat milk, water, whatever it is, and he passes it to Cinta, and Vel walks in and just like grabs it and gets in between them. Which again, I do think makes them feel more human. That little tinge of jealousy. It's not overcoming, it's not overbearing, but it's there, and it makes Vel feel more real.
You know, Ledge, if there's one thing I love, it's more space lesbians.
That is true.
You know, everybody likes to think that Acolyte did it first, but here it is in Andor, you know?
Andor, Skeleton Crew, Rise of Skywalker, which makes me think, I don't think we have any, like, gay relationships in Star Wars, do we? It's all just been lesbians.
I think Greedo might be gay.
You know, and good for Greedo.
I feel like Greedo might be gay.
Which, you know my stance. I'm a big believer that diversity makes stories better. But if we're going to be telling these stories, like, you know, maybe let the gay men have a chance. Maybe give them a voice too.
Hey, man, I don't care what you're doing as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Real.
Fly your flag, brother, whatever it is.
This is the way. The guy, his name starts with a T.
I don't know.
He has been kind of on Andor's butt. Here we go. Taramyn, that's how you pronounce it. So Taramyn, you know, him and Andor have been kind of at odds. Taramyn has been very vocal about not being happy Andor is here. He's been very vocal of Andor needs to do everything he can to get this right. But in this moment, in this toast, he gives Andor the flask with a smile. And I thought that was just a really cool scene just a really cool moment because it shows that this group is really starting to accept Andor into them, or as a part of them.
Or are they?
Or are they? Yeah, spoilers, chat. They actually shoot Andor next episode and frame him, and they're actually all ISB agents just trying to catch him, hired by Cyril.
How do I know you're not an ISB agent, Elijah?
I would never.
Likely story.
That's just what an ISB agent would say.
That's just what Admiral Yularen would say.
I'm too hot and sexy to be an ISB agent.
You're telling me Admiral Yularen is not hot and sexy?
Hey, listen. What Admiral Yularen wants, Admiral Yularen gets.
He's a silver fox, Elijah.
I know. I actually watched A New Hope yesterday, and the whole time I was like, it's Admiral Yularen, our king. I know him from that one thing.
I saw a clip from the 2D micro series Clone Wars the other day. From the, I think it's the attack on Coruscant. Whenever he's the ram, or he's not a ram, but he's one of the, I know his name. It's going to make me so
They've
upset.
got the horns.
He's got the horns. He's one of the Jedi Masters on the council.
Mm-hmm. The one where he jumps out of the ship?
Yeah, but he puts on that sweet, like, gladiator helmet to go out into space.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, that's just so badass.
Dude, listen, in terms of narrative, maybe it definitely was not as good as the 3D Clone Wars, but man, there's not a single project in Star Wars canon that makes the Jedi look as cool as the 2D Clone Wars series.
Oh, in the stories that I think the 2D micro series follows, because that's what it was originally. I haven't talked about it a long time on the show, so this is a great time to bring it up. Originally, that Clone Wars series was played in between shows on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, because each of the arcs are only a couple minutes.
There were like 10-minute episodes that they would play in between episodes of cartoons, so they wouldn't have to lose airtime to commercials and they would still make money.
Yeah.
And then I think I have both of the DVDs now. I mean, it doesn't matter now. They're on Disney Plus. Go check them out.
Yeah.
I love watching those. I'll still go back to that micro series and be like, this is some of the greatest Star Wars.
Yeah. Which, okay, I'm going to get us on another tangent.
That's okay.
Or I'm gonna lengthen this tangent. That's a better way to phrase this.
Lengthen.
This is some of the greatest Star Wars. I agree. And I've been thinking about it a lot. You can really tell with the early seasons of Clone Wars that they viewed that as canon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in the 2D series, we get our introduction to Grievous and Ventress.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 3D series, the characters have already met these characters. You can feel that it was supposed to be a continuation, and now they went and they changed so much, and a lot of things don't fit in canon. I actually went and watched every arc specifically thinking about itself in canon. I think half of them, roughly, the arcs wouldn't work because they contradict other things in the 3D Clone Wars, but man, I know Clone Wars is already a long series, but I would give anything for them to go back, redo some of these earlier arcs from the 2D series, and officially canonize them.
Well, I mean, Asajj is how Anakin gets his scar over his eye.
Right? And he gets knighted shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
Grievous, I don't think, has a single scene as menacing in the 2D Clone War or in the 3D Clone Wars as he does as his introduction in the 2D Clone Wars, where he kills like 5-6 Jedis and they're all like hiding away from him.
Yeah, they're like genuinely scared of Grievous.
Yeah, which we get a little bit of that Grievous in Tales of the Empire.
Yeah,
Morgan Elsbeth's episode. It's the only time I was watching 3D Grievous, and I was like, yeah, there's our 2D Grievous. He's back.
I would say the only arc that rivals that is the one where it's our boy Kit Fisto, and they go to Grievous's lair. That is one of my favorite episodes of Clone Wars.
Yeah. Anyway, Dave, give us the lost episodes, the 40 lost episodes, but also give us, some episodes at the beginning telling those stories too.
Just
give us 3 more seasons, Dave. 3 more.
Give me a whole Grievous show just give me a Grievous show. I want his beginning. I want his, betrayal, everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. They could handle it that way. Instead of just giving us another season of Clone Wars, they could just give us a show based on Grievous when he was not a cyborg that all leads up to him becoming a cyborg and his, official first attack on the Republic during the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah, because I promise we won't spend too much longer on this. I don't know Grievous's introduction into the war.
I don't think we've ever really
pinned it down. It's kind of just like Grievous is here.
Right. I think there was a Legends novel, I believe, or a comic series that covered it. And I'm not sure if there was a canon novel or not.
It's not anymore.
Yeah. Hey, you want to hear something crazy about Grievous?
Tell me.
So we have never seen his official design before he became a cyborg?
Wrong.
Where?
Clone Wars. That same episode that I just named. He has a shrine of himself as a Kaleesh warrior.
Okay, that is true, but we haven't actually seen him as Kaleesh warrior. Does that make sense?
Fair enough.
We might be getting it in Fortnite.
What?
Yeah, so right now, we've talked several times about that it was kind of crummy of Fortnite to have the official reveal that Palpatine was coming back instead of having it in the actual movie,
Nah, Fortnite's better.
And now, General Grievous is the secret, bonus skin for the current Battle Pass, and we know that the first skin is just going to be General Grievous, and the way these skins work, for anyone that doesn't know, is there's 12 items. The only thing we see ahead of time is the first edit style of the skin, this time being General Grievous, like I just said. But we do know he's getting another skin, and there are rumors going around that it's going to be his non-cyborg version, which would mean that his canon design will be shown off in Fortnite before an official Star Wars media project.
I think it's going to be just him with his cape.
Maybe. That is a really good point. Sometimes these styles are really in-depth and are really cool. Sometimes they're super basic.
Just them with a cape.
By the time you're listening to this episode, we will know for sure it's coming out the day that we are publishing this episode. So let us know in the comments how wrong I was.
Hedge your bets now.
I'm hoping it's a kind of darker version like we see in Revenge of the Sith, the video game, where yes, he has the red lightsabers, but his metal is a slightly darker color. He looks a little more evil. Anyway, sorry, got us on a really long Clone Wars tangent there. We should probably get back to Rebels we should probably get back to Andor before
Oh, you want to talk about Rebels? That's fine. I'll talk about Rebels. I can go on and on about that. What do you want to talk about?
I genuinely think we're going to be talking about Rebels a lot throughout the rest of our Andor arc or review because they happen literally parallel to each other.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, they start about the same point and they end about the same point. It's crazy.
Insanity. Yeah, back to Aldhani. They're kind of just going through the mission some more, and Andor asks, why isn't Imperial doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever we kind of get more backstory on Lieutenant Gorn about how, while he was stationed on Aldhani, he fell in love with one of the local women.
Yeah.
And somehow lost her, whether to sickness or the Empire's doing.
Right. Which I really like that they didn't exactly tell us how he lost her. Maybe they broke up because of it. I kind of believe that the Empire either imprisoned or killed her, though.
Who knows?
Who knows? It's a mystery. They answer a lot of questions with this series, but not everything.
Not everything.
And then this should be leading up to the scene where they find the Kyber crystal, right?
Yeah, we get a little peek into where the gold is actually kept.
Oh, right. With Lieutenant Gorn, he goes and he talks to his men.
Mm-hmm.
I really like what he does here because he's being the tough lieutenant, you know, getting onto his men about how things aren't done. They need to get it done as soon as possible, giving them the opportunity to say, "But sir, the eye is coming soon." So now it's not his idea anymore to give his men some time off. Now he's just being a good lieutenant and
boosting morale.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So well written.
It's nice when things work out, isn't it?
Yeah. And like the subtle smile he gives when he turns around after that conversation is so good.
It's all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that Skeen was going to stab Andor in the neck here?
You know, the first time I watched it and this time, I was like, Skeen's a little crazy and he's just playing a little prank. You know, that character I can't think of a specific project, but that cliche of like the crazy character pretends to threaten the main character but doesn't actually mean it. That's kind of the vibe I got. And then he pulled the necklace off and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
I honestly thought he was going to do it.
Yeah?
I was like, I know Andor didn't die, but what if he does get stabbed in the neck right now?
Listen, doesn't mean he's safe from injury.
But yeah, this just leads to the finding of the Kyber and Andor explaining why he's really there.
Yeah, which there's been a lot of tension because they could tell he was lying leading up to this moment. Do you think it would have been better if him and Vel would have just been honest from the beginning? Or do you think this was the right path to let it kind of divulge into this?
I think this was always the way it was going to play out.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they weren't going to trust him regardless. Even if as soon as he showed up, they were like, look, Andor's just here because he wants to get paid and then he's leaving.
Yeah.
And Luthen thinks he's going to be a good addition here to the team.
Yeah.
It helps support what you were talking about earlier about about why he joins the rebellion later. This is one of those stepping stones.
Right. To getting to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I knew I'd get to your point eventually.
Yeah. It was a really big gamble, I think, from Luthen because doing it this way, the Aldhani crew got to know Cassian a little bit before they found out the truth. They got to kind of figure out his character. They got to see how he could be an asset to them. And then they find out the truth. I think that, on one hand, made it a little more accepting of the fact that he's a mercenary. On the other hand, they were lied to for several days. So it was a really big gamble, but it paid off.
I just like Andor's line. They start questioning him, and he's like, they're like, you're just here for the money? And he's like, yeah, I am. But there's a difference between fear and losing your nerve. If you want to leave, leave. I'm here for the money. I'm doing the job, and I'm getting the heck out of here. So what are you guys here for? And they're
my motives aren't the same. But
they're kind of just taken
results.
aback about how, well, you're not here to fight the injustice of the galaxy. And he's like, no. Why would I take this risk if it wasn't to get rich and forget about this and have a good life?
Right. You know, I didn't realize it until this very moment with what you were saying. Doesn't this parallel Han pretty well?
In A New Hope.
In A New Hope, yeah. He's literally just there for the money. But when the rebellion needs him most, he's there.
She's a princess. Imagine how much you get for saving her.
Yep. Nemec. The hurt in his eyes.
Yeah, because he kind of takes Andor in, like, as soon as he arrives.
He's the first one, even before Vel, he's the first one to accept him, and he was so open about why he was fighting the Empire. He's writing his manifesto. There's nothing more important to him than fighting the Empire. And to see Andor say, but money's more important to me, it kind of broke Nimick a little bit. You could see it in his eyes, and I really loved that scene.
Well, I think it takes away some of that, because he's kind of like our innocent character, in a way.
Right.
You know, and I think this moment strips away some of that from him.
His intentions are pure, but not everyone else's are.
I mean, then it kind of just wraps things up. We have a small scene with Mon Mothma and her husband, and he questions, he's like, hey, there's some money missing, and you didn't tell me you were doing this foundation. And she's just like, I thought you wouldn't care, but we know what it's really for. She's not doing a foundation.
Right. Which, she's totally right. The second he heard it was about charity, he would not care. But it's the fact that she didn't tell him that's just tearing him up inside.
Yeah. Cyril sitting at his bed, and we find out what that thing was in his hand at the end of at the beginning of the episode. It's the hologram of Andor.
Yes, I literally remembered the second we moved on, and I was like, dang it, I sounded so dumb. It's so obvious.
I didn't realize it till the end of the episode. I was like, that's what he was doing on the edge of his bed, which I guess if time is happening all at the same time, regardless of what planet you're on here, I guess it was morning. So we know that Cyril has obviously become obsessed at this point. It's the first thing he looks at whenever he wakes up, and it's the last thing he looks at before he goes to bed.
How can he get Andor?
This is still a driving factor of his life.
Right. He had the opportunity to move on, to start his life over, and he just can't. He cannot move on.
It's too heavy. After that, we get a moment between Skeen and Andor where
Yes.
Skeen tells Andor, he's like, look, if we're going to shoot straight with each other here, the reason why I'm here is because my brother killed himself because of the Empire.
Right.
And they kind of get on the same page.
I think a big theme of this series, and just like the more general fight against fascism, a lot of people don't join the rebellion or the fight until it affects them personally, right? Skeen didn't join the fight until his brother killed himself. Gore didn't join the fight until he lost the woman he loved. Andor doesn't really truly join the fight until he was falsely imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. You know, I think it's a good cautionary tale to the fact that we need to step up and fight injustice when we can, not wait until it affects us personally.
It's an interesting concept, my friend.
But yeah, I really did like this scene because they really connect, I think. There's that moment of understanding between the two of them.
Yeah. I want to talk about Luthen, and I think Luthen wraps us up. Yeah,
I think so. Sorry, I thought Cyril was the last thing.
I did too.
But, Luthen is worried. I think this is the only time in season 1 that I can remember him, seeming stressed. But the line that I really wanted to talk about is Clea says, this time tomorrow, we will know the truth. They'll have succeeded or it'll be over. Something like that. And then Luthen says, or it'll just be the beginning. Or maybe I literally can't remember. Maybe it was Clea who said, it'll just be the beginning. But it's really good foreshadowing to how things are going to start really ramping up in terms of the rebellion.
Yeah, and we get a nice little shot over Luthen's shoulder of a really large Sith and Jedi holocron up on his shelf.
Yep.
Just there.
In another universe where the Empire hadn't risen up, a pawn shop style show of Luthen just collecting artifacts in the Star Wars universe I would love to see.
You want a Star Wars Pawn Stars, just say it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. I'd enjoy the same thing. It'd be wonderful.
Who's he going to call in? Who's his expert that he's going to call when somebody brings in a Jedi and Sith holocron? Palpatine? Let me just call my expert real quick, see how much these are worth.
Let me call my boy. Let's see what he says about these. He can identify if these are authentic or not.
Yeah.
Best I can do is 3 dead Jedi and half a Kyber crystal, man. Take it or leave it.
All I can do is we're impounding the shop and taking everything you have. But yeah, I think that was everything. Anything else, my friend?
No, I think that does it for me.
Hell yeah. Well, audience, thank you so much for listening. If you want to be a part of this conversation, you can email us at animalsquadron@gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com. And if you could leave us a review wherever you're listening, that would be amazing for the Animal Squadron. This has been MotherGoose.
And HouseDog. Goodbye.